What if I told you California was once an independent nation for just 25 days? Or that the gold rush was so chaotic miners paid $100 for a single egg? From Spanish missions to Silicon Valley, California's history is wild, violent, and full of surprises. This is the untold story of the Golden State and how it became the most powerful place in America. Whispers of the first fires. Long before gold fever, missions, or statehood, California breathed through the wisdom of its first stewards. A tapestry of over 70 distinct peoples who shaped the land not with conquest, but with care. From the misty redwoods to sun-scorched deserts, 300,000 souls danced in rhythm with the earth, practicing forest gardening, weaving baskets of grass and firelight, and taming wild flame with sacred burns that nourished life for generations. Their societies were intricate, rich with trade, alliances, and gender roles as fluid and honored as the rivers they fished. The joyous, two-spirited keepers of ritual and soul walked the line between worlds until Spanish boots stomped out their light. But though colonizers tried to erase them, the fire still remembers. The hills still hum their names. And in the hush of the forest or crackle of a ceremonial flame, you might still hear the whispers of California's first guardians. The Phantom Island and the Cross. Before the rush for gold, before Hollywood's glimmer, California was a whisper on the ocean winds, a rumored paradise, a phantom island etched onto the dreams of conquistadors and kings. In 1542, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo sailed north with hope in his sails, unknowingly launching centuries of change as he entered the calm embrace of San Diego Bay. Then came Francis Drake, laying an ambiguous English claim, and Filipino sailors, first Asians to tread these shores, caught in the vast tide between old faiths and new empires. Spanish maps called it an island. Explorers marked its bays, and missionaries would mark its soul. By 1769, the Holy Cross and the soldier's saber marched inland with Portola and Serra, founding presidios and missions, anchoring Spain's dream in adobe and prayer. Yet beneath it all, the land still whispered its older name, unwritten, unspoken, beneath every footprint laid by those who came to claim it. Missions, rivers, and forgotten forts. In the wake of Portola's bold march, Father Serra's dream unfurled like parchment across the California coast, stringing 21 missions like sacred pearls along El Camino Real. San Francisco, San Diego, Santa Barbara, cities that would later pulse with millions, were once humble outposts of prayer and promise. Into the heart of this new frontier came Juan Bautista de Anza in 1775, carving deeper paths inland, sketching out new pueblos and presidios as Gabriel Moraga named the rivers, Sacramento, San Joaquin, that would one day irrigate empires. Yet far to the north, a different flag fluttered. The Russians built Fort Ross on a foggy bluff, a lonely outpost destined for abandonment, a ghost before it even died. While Spain's grip weakened and whispers of revolution stirred in Mexico, California seemed distant, forgotten. But not by its own people, the Californios, who longed for trade, for growth, for a voice. As Spain faded into history, California stood at the edge of a new dawn, its spirit still unclaimed, still restless. Ranchos, rebels, and restless borders. When Mexico broke free from Spain's shadow in 1821, Alta California was suddenly a province with no map for its future. Just sun-scorched hills, scattered missions, and ambition blowing in from the east. The old Spanish missions were stripped of their sanctity and repurposed into vast ranchos, where Californios raised cattle and carved out mini-kingdoms, trading hides with wandering Yankee ships. But as cowhides flowed out, something else drifted in. Foreign settlers, trappers, dreamers, weaving their way across brutal trails, from Oregon to the High Sierra, with eyes set on California's wild promise. Mexico's political chaos echoed in the dusty outposts of the north. In 1836, amidst this uncertainty, a young revolutionary named Juan Bautista Alvarado briefly declared California an independent state, backed by restless Anglo-American allies. The dream flickered, faded, and boiled into suspicion. Soon after, 100 foreigners without papers were rounded up in the Graham affair. British warships loomed off the coast. The soil trembled beneath the weight of empires and exiles alike. California, still untamed, teetered between nations, belonging to none, yet watched by all. The pen that opened the West. In a land ruled by distant courts and local chaos, one man dared to reshape California's destiny. Not with a sword, but with a pen. John Marsh, a rugged rancher surrounded by squatters and stifled by a crumbling Mexican legal system, refused to be silenced. He saw California not as a forgotten outpost but as a paradise waiting to be claimed. So he wrote passionate, persuasive letters painting California as a land of golden soil, gentle climate, and untapped promise. Those letters ignited imaginations across the young United States, sparking the first great wagon trains westward along what became known as Marsh's Route. But Marsh wasn't finished. In the smoke of the Battle of Providencia, as two rival forces clashed for control, he rode into the fray, not to fight, but to reason. With words, he dissolved the war, turned soldiers into allies, and helped restore native Californian Pio Pico to power. In doing so, Marsh quietly cleared the path for California's eventual embrace by the United States. He was no general, no president, but with conviction and ink, he lit the fuse that would explode into American California. The Bear Flag rises. California's wild leap into the stars and stripes. In the summer of 1846, California stood at the edge of a storm. Tired of distant rule and fired up with a frontier spirit, a band of scrappy American settlers in Sonoma hoisted a hand-painted flag, marked with a grizzly bear, a star, and the bold claim, California Republic. For a fleeting moment, under the leadership of William B. Ide, they declared a new nation born from rebellion. But destiny was already galloping faster than the ink could dry. As the Bear Flag revolt flared, U.S. forces under Commodore John D. Sloat sailed into Monterey, kicking off a full-scale military invasion amidst the raging Mexican-American War. The North fell quickly, but the South fought on, fiercely and with pride. Battles lit up the hills and valleys, San Pascual, Olampoli, Dominguez Rancho, until finally, on a quiet January day in 1847, the Treaty of Cahuenga was signed. Resistance faded, and with it, California's brief dream of independence. The Bear Flag came down, but not before lighting the fuse that would transform a rebel territory into a jewel of the American West. Gold, glory, and growing pains. California's rush into the American dream. It all began with a glittering whispered gold, discovered just days before California was officially claimed by the United States in 1848. That tiny sparkle would unleash a human stampede unlike anything seen before. In just a few short years, sleepy Alta California exploded from a scattered settlement of 8,000 to a bursting population of over 300,000 dreamers. Miners, merchants, gamblers, and hopefuls from every corner of the earth. San Francisco mushroomed from a dusty village of 500 to a thundering boomtown of 150,000. Amid the chaos, California drafted a constitution, bounced its capital from town to town like a hot coal, and sprinted into statehood by 1850, skipping territorial status entirely. But while gold was king, deep tensions brewed. Chinese immigrants helped carve out the Transcontinental Railroad through sheer grit, only to face brutal backlash and exclusion. California would send gold, not soldiers, to the Union during the Civil War, torn by sympathies but rich in resources. And as trains stitched the West to the East in 1869, California transformed from distant dreamland into the beating heart of America's frontier spirit, beautiful, bountiful, and boiling with contradictions. Whispers beneath the redwoods. California's forgotten war. Beneath the golden glow of California's promise, a darker storm raged. One that most history books whisper about, if at all. As settlers poured in, chasing gold and glory, California's native peoples faced a slow, deliberate erasure. Disease had already hollowed communities, but under U.S. rule, the violence became organized and state-funded. Governor Peter Burnett didn't mince words in 1851. He foretold a war of extermination, and the state followed through. Laws masked slavery and legality. City councils approved slave auctions, and militias were paid to protect settlers by massacring entire villages. From 1846 to 1873, As Benjamin Madley chillingly records, thousands of indigenous Californians were hunted, killed, and driven from their homelands, their suffering often hidden beneath euphemisms like protection or pacification. Rancherias became exile, survival became resistance, and a genocide unfolded beneath the shadow of California's rise. Today, the redwoods still stand, and in their silence, you can almost hear the stories of those lost to the darkness, echoing through time. California dreaming, from earthquakes to silicon dreams. The 20th century cracked California wide open, sometimes literally. In 1906, San Francisco trembled and burned, a city shaken to its knees by one of history's most violent earthquakes. But like a phoenix, it rose, stronger, more electric, and more determined to chase the future. As Hollywood lit up the silver screen with dreams, and the Central Valley bloomed with food for a hungry world, California began to shimmer with promise. It became a beacon, for Dust Bowl migrants seeking work, for GIs returning home, for artists, rebels, and visionaries craving a place to make it big or start anew. But the Golden State has always had shadows too. From race riots in Watts to the internment of Japanese Americans, from the assassinations of Bobby Kennedy and Harvey Milk to the battle for civil rights and environmental justice, California has been as much a battleground as a paradise. And now, it's the brain of the tech world, the heart of climate innovation, and still the dreamscape of millions. But beneath the glamour and golden light, California carries the weight of its past, reminding us that every dream has a cost, and every paradise, its reckoning. So, do you think California's best days are ahead or behind it? And what surprised you most, the Bear Flag Revolt, the Gold Rush chaos, or Hollywood's dark beginnings? Let's debate in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into American history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Next up, we're exploring the history of Texas/New York, so stay tuned on History Love.